Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric. Uh, Once again, I appreciate you tuning in, giving your feedback, and sharing the show out. It's continually helpful as it helps the platform and Blue Grit Wellness grow. So, I want to start off by saying nothing more than thank you. Today in the solo cast, I'm going to be talking about communication. I'm going to be talking about how to talk to people, and I'm by no means any expert. I'm continually practicing. I'm continually learning about communication in the workplace, communication in interpersonal relationships. But it really is what is going to help the fabric of our society. It's what's going to help uh, keep our minds open and help other people stay open to different ideas, different ways of thinking, to help us all grow. And beyond that, it's just how we convey relationship, how we can level, how we can appropriately relay what we're thinking, so people know what we're about, and we can move forward from there. Um, I guess to rewind it back a little bit, as I've talked about before, I grew up a pretty shy kid, and so when it comes to just verbalizing my intentions, when it comes to sharing my ideas verbally, it's definitely a very it's very far from a strong suit. As I pause for my word choice, um, I think a little bit is that my personality. I think a little bit of that is cultural, as I've kind of explored. Um, East Asian culture, or maybe it's fair to say a lot of Asian culture traditionally is a lot more of the people should be seen, not heard. And I say, that's a common adage for children, but in a lot of ways it is people, right? Um, you may be treated or regarded like a child as long as you are the child, right? Even an adult child. So a lot of, respect your elders, no back talk. Quickly, a share of discourse can appear as back talk, right? So when you talk about cultural norms, things like that, communication is key. Um, in academics, I got much more comfortable with written communication. That's still something that I lean into, that I feel a lot more proficient in. But if those of you listening in are a bit more introverted like myself, if you don't feel yourself to be a very strong speaker, public speaker, and you think that even listening to this podcast, I'm a natural, or you've seen me in public, whether it's at work or otherwise, speak to a large room, or even beyond that, like a hall or a forum. It's not to say it's easy by any means, right? It's really come through repetitions, and that's practice, just like anything. Um, so why communication? Well, as I've talked about, with my hat being much in the hiring space and the training space, it's something that you hear more and more in the workplace, and that's not just police workplace. That's just the workplace in general. You hear about generational themes and challenges. We are a smartphone society. We are an instant gratification society. We are a text society. I'm an old millennial, as I could be categorized. I'm in my late 30s. So, yes, I do prefer to text, and I find it efficient. I do get annoyed by my friends or colleagues that call and then don't leave a voicemail, because then you're like, man, how important was it? They called, they didn't leave a voicemail. Is that like a nothing? But then they didn't text, so I don't know the context. Uh, but at the same time, maybe some of you guys can relate to this, but I get kind of annoyed when people leave a voicemail and it's 30 seconds, a minute, or 2 minutes long. It's kind of meandering, and it's an introduction. Hey, this is me. Okay, I already saw the call log. I think that's generational stuff, right? I think a lot of us could sympathize with that one direction or the other. Some of y'all might think, yeah, I'm with you, Eric. I'm right there. And then others of you might be like, okay, you're the person annoyed by a voicemail. I literally conveyed what I needed so that you know exactly where I'm at, whether this is urgent, all these things. But it is an increasing challenge, right? You don't have to go far to talk to an administrator, a supervisor, or a senior cop. and this is not just cops, right? I always lean into what I know in my field, but this is firefighters. We're talking about interviews, just oral boards, anything public facing, customer service, private sector. You're seeing more, you're hearing more. It's articles, it's podcasts about these kids don't know how to talk to people. They're on their phones, they're on their apps, and they don't know how to have a face-to-face interaction. They don't know how to hold eye contact. They don't know how to listen. And so we could go on for hours, which is ironic about communication. But I want to keep it to a few simple things. Some things in the job and some things out of the job that bring it to focus for me and that I have found very helpful. So let's just get going. When I was a newer cop, I remember being a very responsible new police officer. You hear all the advice of your senior officers that say, "Hey, don't go buying a house. Don't go get a huge car payment. Don't buy a new car until you're off probation. Wait for all that." So I was very responsible, and I waited until I was off probation, and then I went to go buy a reasonable, lower mileage used car because that's how practical I was. You're welcome, Mom. Thanks for the life lessons. Definitely didn't seem like I was going to be fiscally conservative or minded as a teenager, but you're welcome, Mom, and thank you for your lessons. They did set in a little bit later in life for me when I started to have to make my own way, and I saw how far a dollar could or couldn't go. So shout out, Mom. But when we talk about buying that car, I remember getting onto the lot. I knew I had already researched the car I was looking at. It was an Acura. Yeah, way to fulfill stereotypes. But I did have a pickup truck before that when I was doing the college painting business thing. So don't judge too hard. But yeah, in any case, I knew what car I was going to get. I stepped off onto the lot, and right away there was the most annoying typical car salesman, and he just had that smug attitude. He was pretty douchey just in vibe and everything about him, right? He'd kind of chin up, and he's like, "Hey, so yeah, what can I help you with?" And I was like, "Hey, I was looking at this car," and then he started talking at me, right? He was saying everything at me. He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't listening. He'd ask a question, but as soon as I was starting to answer, he would cut me off and just start talking about the car, or talking about this or that, or oh no, all these things that he knew or didn't know about the car or some other car. A lot of it was neither here nor there, which was hopefully you recognize how annoying that is. And maybe some of you are picturing someone that you've had an interaction with just like this, and you're already starting to get annoyed. But he was that guy. And so pretty quickly I decided I wasn't going to buy a car from him, which is so significant because I was there. I literally knew which car I was going to buy. Oh, I had already test driven it. I'd already talked to someone else another day and test driven some other cars, and I was kind of coming back just to buy this one. And that guy wasn't available at the lot. But in any case, I basically just waited until he was done talking, and he didn't really want to give me the time of day, right? He just kind of wanted to talk at me, and then I don't know if it was because I was young, definitely younger looking than I even was, and I was pretty young, right? I was 22 years old. And I basically just let him walk away. I said, "Hey, thank you. I'll just kind of be poking around." He didn't offer to help with anything. He didn't say, "Hey, hit me back when you have something else, or when you want to go to the next step." He just kind of just talked at me and didn't really listen to even why I was there. Because as I've shared with you, I was there to buy the car. I literally walked a few feet back towards my car, and then I caught a glimpse of some other guys standing out there, just kind of looking for people to pull into the lot. And I just walked up to him and I said, "Hey man, you work here?" He's like, "Yeah, I work here." I was like, "You're a salesman?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Cool. I would like to buy a car, and I know which car it is, and you have it here." He's like, "All right, great. Just follow me and let's talk. Do you want to drive it again?" And I was like, "No, I'm good." And so much of that just came with temperament, right? He was standing there. He was ready to receive. He was, he didn't have some, smug, smirk look on his face. We're talking about car salesmen. unrelated, but he was a cop, prior life, and maybe that informed how he was going to do business, right? Uh, this ties in because I think about all these cops, and I was one for quite a while, so don't get me wrong, but all these cops that, whether they're making up for something or whether they are the law and the authority, and they just think that this ties in with officer presence and building confidence in the community or those you interact with, but they just talk at people. They don't talk with people. And that is such a pet peeve now, and I think that some experience, I think that some maturity has helped me become informed in that. Certainly a lot of experience and seeing things from both sides, just growing up. Um, but yeah, you're out there as a figure, as an authority, but you don't need to talk down to people. You certainly should not talk down to people, and you don't even need to talk at them, right? Too often we cut people off. We think we know what they're going to say, and maybe the majority of the time we know we're on the right track. This kind of call or that kind of call, what you can and can't do. But I strongly encourage all of the listeners out there, new cops, soon to be cops, experienced cops, firefighters. I've seen this. It's all people, all walks. Just stop 1 second and listen. So much of communication isn't what you're saying; it's what you're receiving, what you're understanding. And unless you actually pause, unless you actually take a breath and let someone say what they're going to say, whether it's 20 seconds or 3 minutes, just wait until they're done and then follow up. So if there's any big takeaway, it is that. Simply listen. Similar vein, and this is kind of what got me even wanting to record on this topic, but I'll say for a lot of you, you know that I write on my blog, less active there, but I've been writing for Police One for a little bit, and it's just been a really amazing outlet for me. It's been an awesome opportunity. The editor-in-chief and the staff there have been fantastic to work with, but it didn't start with Police One, right? I actually had this notion of these ideas to write for police publications and just to reach out to different publications. Some I was aware of, some I was more unaware of. But I can speak to my experience with one specific editor at a different police publication, and I'll describe my experience and I'll leave the editor and the publication anonymous because it's not constructive and it doesn't matter. But in any case, I had basically been trying to establish contact and communication with some different, publications and editors. So I was just looking online. I was trying to find, how to contact, how to submit, and what they required as far as bio and background, how they wanted it formatted, maybe examples, concepts, drafts, things like that. And eventually I did get a phone call with one gentleman, and he was a very experienced cop. He had risen to command level. If I remember right, I think he was going to take a stab at sheriff down where he was. And he had written for, a host of different organizations, Police One included. And when I was talking to him about this opportunity, he went on a talk at me tirade. It was all this advice, but I love mentorship, I love coaching, and I love advice, but everything was just a lecture, right? No one wants to be lectured. I'm not talking about like a TED talk or like a keynote speaker. This was like you had to be there, and almost like a child you're getting lectured at. And I was asking him some open-ended questions, and I was asking him, about opportunities or what it would look like to become a contributor. And then it just became, the diatribe of, there's really no, let me tell you, Eric, let me tell you, bud, sport. It was almost that condescending age thing that I perceived, whether correct or incorrect. But it was, there's really no money in publications and print. But I'll tell you what, I got an opportunity for you. And he started selling me on writing for him. But as he went for a while, he went for minutes without me saying a ha or any sort of semi-verbal feedback. But he was basically telling me that if I could pitch him send him my best stuff. I mean, some completed work, some drafts, and then a list. Like he wanted like 8 prompts or 8 concepts of things I want to contribute. And if I could do that by, say, could you do it by next Wednesday? I'm like, sir, I mean, I really appreciate you having the talk with me. I'm out of town with friends and family right now, and then I'm back to the road. So, in the interest of not creating unrealistic expectations of myself, in the interest of being able to deliver what I promised or over deliver, I'd probably need more time for all that. He's like, okay, well, here's part of the thing, right? You're really gonna need to deliver on a timeline, this and that. Um, Granted, he already prompted me saying there's no money in print or there's no money in even these online publications that where really it would all be just to get my voice out and potentially network for myself or just get my name and my message out there to get more of an imprint in whatever it was I was trying to do, for my resume or for my experience, right? So I already wasn't in it for the money, which I think anyone writing will recognize the truth in that statement, as I've continued to do it not for the money, and it's been really rewarding, but not for this publication that I'm talking about. So in any case, he keeps going and he's saying, yeah, so you can do that and get me your best work, and by this deadline, let's set a date, right? Like let's decide one, and then you can circle back. I'll review it, and then if you're good, if I like what you have to say, if I like what you're doing, then we can talk. And then the expectation would be, I'll need 1 to 2 like solid, full, fleshed out articles, per month, and then you could probably be featured regularly. And sure, I'm an editor, but I want you to go through this with a fine-toothed comb. Like I want you to read it to yourself 5 times. I want you to read it aloud 5 times. I want you to run it by your friends or family that are very grammatically and writing inclined to review it before I even see it. When I see it, I don't want any edits. I don't want anything that needs to be done. Maybe like a little idea tweak or maybe a wording thing, but I want it to be perfect, right? I want it to be your tip-top quality stuff. And then so basically it's ready to print and we can go. How's that sound? And I was like, I mean, it sounds like a thing. Let me mull it all over and I'll get back to you, sir. But after quite an extended chat with this gentleman, I started thinking to myself, hey, I'm no slouch. I'm not adverse to working hard. I certainly do that in my 40 plus hours a week. I certainly do that in my personal life and my personal pursuits, fitness and life and goals, in and out of work. And now I have this work-esque hobby that I'm entertaining and starting to get my feet wet or trying to get my feet a little bit wet. But I feel like he's created this job only to benefit himself. I feel like he wants me to work for him, like so he can take my work for free and have nothing that he has to put stock in, nothing that he has to alter. So that left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. But I will say it was 95% because of how he talked to me. When I think about it back, and I think that a lot of people are willing to, they continue to, or they certainly have for quite a while, done a lot of work uncompensated, right? Maybe that's just literally, the example is getting into the career that you're in, whatever that may be, or the career that you're trying to get into. Maybe that's police, right? You're not getting compensated to work out. You're not getting compensated to study or to look up or listen to my podcasts, right? Interview tips. Like, no, you're not getting paid, but you're getting better. And hopefully you see the value in that. And hopefully you see the result of that in your efforts as you test and you get hired on or you get farther in the process, right? Sometimes it takes people a bit as they keep going back to the drawing board and they keep refining and they keep practicing. It takes work. It takes intention. It takes humility. It takes effort to solicit your friends and family to pitch oral board questions, right? To simulate that on the phone or in person where you're sitting at a table and you're making eye contact. You're trying not to smirk because it's uncomfortable. I mean, that takes a lot of guts. Most people say they'll do it. I guarantee you, most people don't do it. So if you want to stick out, do what other people aren't willing to do. Um, but go back to the original example. This guy was this guy was not fun to listen to. He certainly wasn't fun to talk to. I barely talked to him, right? I just got talked at. Um, Circle back around, fast forward, I've been contributing and writing for Police One, and it's been a fantastic experience. And this is like a semi plug for Police One. I've always that was the publication that I got my training tips, videos, news, um, thoughts, leadership articles from since I was a really new cop anyway. So it really felt, I mean, it felt pretty awesome to be able to contribute to like a legitimate, more widespread um, publication. But it was the candor, right? It was just the simple, even though it was through email with their editor in chief. She was just fantastic. She was responsive, professional. I felt validated in my questions and prompting things, even though it wasn't all great, right? I pitched some ideas, and she was just pretty quick to say, "Hey, like I have a lot of that. I don't really need that." And I pitched some more ideas, and she's like, "Okay, now I think you're onto something." And it's just another version of being coached. It's another version of being mentored and being guided, not feeling discarded because I didn't have more than one article that I'd contributed to a police publication, right? She gave me the time of day, and that's something that I'm reflecting on now as I've been able to contribute more regularly. I think about that being years in the making, and maybe it's just because I was listening to a podcast recently. I'm halfway through, but it's about the neuroscience of manifestation, and there's a lot of people that talk about manifestation now, and back in the day, it was kind of that woo-woo science, right? Oh, you think things and believe things into occurring, and that's one angle. But really, we all know the power of belief, and we all know the power of conviction. And so, what it is essentially if you are priming yourself with this belief, with here's the catch, the work behind it, right? You have that positive mindset, and you put in the work. You're gonna set yourself up for success, and it's gonna pan out. So that's not woo. That's just you doing the work and having the belief, right? There's people that do the work that they have all this negative doubt, and when I talk about the neuroscience, the plain speak is if you believe something and if you're the positive mental attitude, right? I mean, you hear about it in cancer survivors. You hear about it in people coming out of the worst personal, financial, relational situations. But when they believe and they put in the work, they can get there. Your neurons are actually, wiring or rewiring towards a positive yield or positive result based on how you think, how you believe, based on what you're exposed to. Um, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're around a toxic group at work, I can guarantee you'll be toxic, right? There's very few people and far between that can really not be affected. Sure, I mean, you can be that, that proverbial lotus growing out of the mud. Um, and there are a lot of examples of that when people, again, it's resilience and adversity. But I would venture to guess, or I would put a lot of money on the fact that those people were continually wiring or rewiring their brain contrary to what they're exposed to. So, they're around a toxic group at work or a toxic group at home. They are continually doing all the other things to counteract that, telling themselves otherwise, forcing themselves, reminding themselves to be positive, and finding a bunch of other outlets or inputs to be positive. And so I know I started with communication and then I went a very different direction, but the point is it's all related. And when you have the right energy, you have the right mindset, you have the right positivity associated with what you're doing, associated with what you're saying, how you're communicating, then you're going to be far, far more effective, right? So I started at people talking at me and how it was received or how it was not received. And then I've reflected in years of doing police work what it was like or what it must have felt like with me talking at people Whereas in my latter years, I can confidently say and proudly say that I recognize the error of my ways, and I just try to level with people, right? I was very okay saying I didn't know when someone, a subordinate, an officer, a new officer, or someone in the community said, "Hey, what about this ordinance or what about this thing?" I'm like, I don't know. Like I'll raise my eyebrows and shake my head, smirk, maybe say, I don't know. I would love to know that. There's a lot of stuff we really would love to know. Maybe we should know. It's like in the moment, yes, I can make quick decisions based on, do we have probable cause? Do we have reasonable suspicion for these crimes, those crimes, or this type of crime? But I don't need to know the specific ordinance. I can look it up. Um, and I think that, and I've recognized that when you have that honesty and that humility to say, hey, I don't know, like, let's look it up together, or hold on a sec, I'll find out, or hey, I'll be able to check back later today. I'll circle you back in, I'll send you an email, I'll call you, whatever the thing is. People receive that, right? Ultimately, people want to be talked to like human beings. They want to be talked to like people. And it's okay to show that you're human too. It's very, very much more than okay just to be positive, to be humble, and to communicate that through acting that way, right? Be your authentic self. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to be that know-it-all. You maybe emulate it from what you've seen in other examples of whatever job you're in, whether it's police or otherwise. Those are helpful to an extent. It's helpful to have a model, but then quickly you need to realize what the healthier models are, what the more beneficial models are that resonate with you, resonate with your values, and just by playing it out, you can see what's going to be more effective, right? So to conclude, to summarize, don't talk at people. Remember, we're all people. Just talk to people as people. Talk to people as a person. Be patient. Don't try to be something you're not. And keep that positivity, right? Positivity in all the things you do. We get so weighed down by the negative in this job and all first responder work that we have to be so intentional to counteract that, right? It might sound like, it's another, wellness, positivity kind of cop. Well, you have to be. You really don't have a choice. If you want to have a career with longevity, if you want to have a career with health, with healthy boundaries in and out of the career for the whole life, for your whole lifestyle, then it's imperative. So with that, I thank you for listening again. And as always, please share this out. Follow me on Instagram, Blue Grit Wellness. The likes, the shares, it all helps the algorithm. It all helps me reach more people. My fantastic guests that I have on that I've been rolling out, and I'm trying to space them out just so I can navigate, the busier times in life or work, just so there's a steady stream. But I'm super stoked about a lot of guests that are on deck. There's a little bit of editing, or they're all primed up. I'm just waiting to drop them. But look back if you haven't. Check out the older episodes, solo cast, as well as the interviews. There isn't a single interview where I haven't learned a lot myself, and where I haven't been humbled and just super grateful for being able to connect with these people that many I would never have connected with outside of social media. Many I would never have had an actual conversation or an interview where we were able to really learn a lot as people, a lot of new ideas, a lot of similar themes, and just recognize that this is an amazing community in and out of law enforcement, right? But just people trying to do better, people trying to be better and lift up others. And that's what this whole project is about. So check it out, share it out, and I thank you very much. Take care, be safe.